got me one. It's full of fun.
Did you guys see the new chamber? Stickers? Very anyway, the chamber meeting. Yeah, they gave two out each business, and then I think they're gonna sell them and send them to City Council. Resign or make them, let's have some.
No, no,
It was Sandy.
Yeah, it was Sandy.
It was Sandy that made it.
I have to put them up on my window to try to.
And yes, you can buy some if you
Yes.
want more.
Businesses get two.
Any progress on that?
I know, I saw the, up there.
hello and welcome everyone to the Sheridan City
Recording in
Council.
progress.
Today is, to the special session of the Sheridan City Council. Today is March 4th, 2024. The time is 7 p.m. We are meeting in the Sheridan City Hall Council chambers. So, let's see. Roll call, please.
Yes, Thompson,
Here.
Deycia, here, Buckles,
Here.
McElroy,
Here.
Hebert,
Here.
George,
Here.
Hodgins.
Here. Thank you. So, we will have a couple of deletions on tonight's agenda. And I'm afraid it might be why a lot of people are joining us, but I'm very sorry about that. So this just happened a couple of hours before the meeting. So we are going to move, let's see, item C2, which is 127 Southwest Mill Street discussion. And we're also moving the update on the YCAP mobile shower unit to a special meeting of the Sheridan City Council that we will set for March 12th, if possible, and March 13th, if that's not possible. So, councilors, please raise your hand if you are able to attend a meeting on the afternoon of March 12th. Tuesday.
So is it Tuesday, gonna be a Tuesday, Wednesday?
Yeah.
At what time?
We're thinking, what, 3, 4?
Well, it depends when, I think, Kale can get off work, right? Is that what?
Yeah, so Caleb, when would be better for you on an afternoon? Can you come at 3 or 4?
Tuesday or Wednesday?
On a Tuesday or Wednesday, yeah.
Probably 4.
4 on a Tuesday is okay?
I think so. That's,
Or would you prefer 4 on a Wednesday?
I think Tuesday fine. That's, I get back on Monday, but Tuesday I should be fine to meet.
Okay.
Is that okay?
All right, so Kale is suggesting 4 p.m. on Tuesday, March 12th. Does that work for everyone?
Tuesday, March 12th?
Mm-hmm.
At 4 p.m.?
Yes. No, I just wanted to know if it's okay with you and if it is. All right. All right. So please return to the council chambers at that time if you are interested in listening to this conversation about those things. But one thing I want to say, just so that you're not wondering about this, I'm kind of a little bit of aware of what some of the rumors are, and I just want to assure you that no homeless shelters will be built in Sheridan. I kind of have an idea what you read and why you may think that's the case, but I assure you it is not the case. So hopefully that will help, and then hopefully you'll be back on Tuesday to join us. But please stay tuned for the rest of what we have going on tonight. Okay. All right, so it is time for our first public comment period. If you'd like to speak, you just need to see Yvonne there for a slip of paper, and we welcome your comments. The public comment portion of the agenda is the opportunity for the council to listen to the public, but not for dialogue. The public is allowed up to 3 minutes to present information relevant to the city. The topic issue brought up may be referred by the council to the city manager for inclusion on a subsequent council agenda. Council has the discretion to ask questions after comments are concluded. Please note, Complaints should first be addressed to the appropriate city department and or the city manager prior to directly addressing the council. And first we have Joe Neely.
Hi, Joe Neely, resident of Sheridan. In case that some of you may have known or not known, I did a little survey to get what the community that's on Facebook with all 5 pages of what they might be considered a priority focus for the city of Sheridan to focus on. If everyone wants to see the statistics, I have the statistics if she wants that. And here, yep, that gives you an idea of priority. So the first priority, everyone, 33% said street maintenance, street repairs, potholes, things like that. Second priority was sidewalk maintenance. That includes ADA compliance, path for retirement home. That was a big one to make sure that people can get there and not get hit. Third was skate park resurfacing. Fourth place was more law enforcement. That also includes more 24-hour patrols. And fifth was pedestrian safety, and that was the pedestrian crossing lights. So that tells you an idea of what is part of the top 5. Everything else is range 16, 13, 12. That includes more public trees, more than 2 dog parks, things of that nature. I broke it down pretty good. Liz over there has a copy of everyone whose names have basically voted on specific things. So yeah, there's a total of 819 votes. At least 273 people have voted in this to show you an idea of what is important to Sheridan that they want to see accomplished this year in 2024. I know that there's not a lot of dialogue, but I threw out the names out there over there on Liz's side to show credibility, I guess you could say, that I didn't just come up with these numbers. And so it just shows if anyone's interested who voted for. Some people even voted new poll. Some people even said Swinger Parks for votes, but I have no idea what that means. But I did throw in topics like RC car track, more businesses, frisbee golf, amphitheater, more streetlights. Streetlights was a big one. A food court potentially, BMX, MTB trails. My guess is more public trails for people to enjoy. They're recreating. Storm drain improvements, all these other things that were mentioned and broken down to show what is more of a priority to be focused in 2024. And next year, I'm looking forward to doing a 2025. I just want my community to thrive and feel like they're being heard. And there's some people out there, unfortunately, that feel like they're not being heard, but I want to make 2024 a difference.
Okay.
Going forward.
Thank you for your hard work.
Oh, thank you. Anytime, it's a pleasure.
Say the same thing. Thank you so much for doing this. This is a fair amount of work, as we know, looking at different surveys. The one thing that I agree with, don't think I don't, more law enforcement is something I think we all wanted, but it is tremendously expensive. And I know that we tried 2 years ago to add a fee to the, excuse me, we can't say fee, add a assessment onto the water bill for $13.23 to get more, 2 more law enforcement officers, which would greatly enhance what we've got. And the city turned it down, and that is pricey, and I get that. But, so I wholeheartedly concur if we could find a way to do that. I just want to kind of let everybody know, people that jumped in on this survey and you, it's really going to be difficult to have that happen. But
And I know an ODOT representative came here to start the process for the sidewalks. I know that's a good direction.
so some of these things are definitely doable, and we're able to work at it. Law enforcement, which is truly very important. I don't want anybody to mistake me, but I don't know that we're going to be able to fund that. I'm sorry. I wish we win the lotto, but we don't.
Right.
So. But thank you, regardless.
Yeah, I know you're busy. Do you have any other questions or?
Anybody else? Thank you so
All right,
much.
yeah, thank you.
I'll be really nice to them after the meeting.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, no problem. Anytime. I just want everyone to be in touch with the community as much as possible.
Yeah, that's
And,
excellent.
and this is what helps Heidi and helps us be able to focus more with people like you volunteering to help her, which helps us, and then we really are community. So thank you, Joseph,
Oh, yeah, no
very
problem.
much.
It took a lot of hours to do. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah,
everybody.
it did.
It's really nice to be done.
Thank you.
Okay.
make a couple comments and suggestions about the topic of homelessness and the grant that Representative Elmer helped Sheridan get. That was specifically for a shelter. I know this is a very contentious topic, not just for Sheridan, but for most communities in Oregon and much of the West Coast. It's not an easy topic, and there doesn't seem to be easy answers. From what I can tell, the council starting around 2022 needed to look into this topic, and they did, doing research and looked into what options or solutions were available. And then the spring of last year, it seems the direction things were going was to build a small shelter in Sheridan and provide some homeless and low-income resources. While I understand there were 2 town halls during that time, I'm not sure how many people attended, maybe 20 or 30. Certainly, the city council wasn't trying to keep the plan secret, but I'm thinking at this point that most likely the vast majority of citizens didn't really understand or know about this. So towards the latter half of last year, more people heard about this and were concerned. The council did a survey and also found that the vast majority of people surveyed in Sheridan were not for the shelter idea. So at some point last year, the council changed directions on this, and now the shelter isn't an option. But there are other options like the Resource Info Center that I can see doing some real good in town. I'm hoping that all has been done to try to see if we can get the grant money to be able to be reworded or used for a resource center. I'm hoping Rep. Elmer's office has been contacted for help and maybe some direction as well. I don't know. I just wanted to say that. And I feel like a new town hall should be held and voted well in advance, and then allow people to ask questions and maybe in a little bit more of an informal versus like a city council meeting, get answers. I think that will help. These are just suggestions, and I probably am missing a whole lot of information, but since it was on the agenda tonight, I felt like I wanted to say these things.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, Kiki.
Yeah.
Great. Is there anyone else that wants to fill out a form and has anything to add? No? Okay. We shall move forward. Our first presentation tonight is Ryan Pasquarella with Grove Mueller Swank PC. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. How are you this evening?
Oh, good.
So far, so good.
That's definitely the way it works. My name's Ryan Pasquarella. I have worked for Grove Mueller Swank at CPA for around Salem for about the past 18 years. In November of 2023, we actually merged with a regional firm. So you might see REW listed and some other things, but still us, still GMS, just working through the audit as we historically have. I'm here to talk briefly about the June 30, 2023 fiscal year audit that was completed back in December and submitted to the state. Cities is required to have an annual audit done by.
I'm sorry.
I'm out of time.
Your time is up.
Good night. I'm out of here. You're required to have an annual audit completed within 6 months of the end of your fiscal year. So basically December 31, it is due and you are timely with the filing this year. You should all have 2 documents. One is the financial statements themselves. The other one, as always, is our governance letter. It's on our letterhead, and it basically just describes how the audit went. You're going to read that, and it's going to be very similar to what you've seen in prior years. So if you're looking for the governance letter, it's on the letterhead, something like this, and it's about a 4-page document. You got it. There it is. So you'll read through it. This is where we're supposed to communicate if there were difficulties with the audit, if there were significant audit adjustments that were required as part of our procedure. You're going to read through this. There was nothing significant that came up that we feel like we need to speak to the council about. There were a couple of minor adjustments we recommend, but you're going to get that on every single audit. That's what we do. That's my job. If I don't find adjustments, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, we're going to keep looking until we find something for sure. But I just wanted to remind people what truly my opinion is on these financial statements. The numbers are there. We are basically required to give give reasonable assurance it is free from material misstatements. I'm not gonna say every number is 100% correct in there, because we're not gonna look at everything. We're gonna look at all the big stuff. We're gonna make sure that things are classified correctly in a material way, and we didn't have any issue with that. So you're getting a clean opinion yet again on your financial statements. But we feel, personally, I signed this myself, that this is free from material misstatements in there. So the front part of this document is the management discussion and analysis, and it's a little short narrative that kind of talks about what's happening. The only things I want to point out in these financial statements, and now we're 8 months past the end of the year, this is really, during fiscal year 23 is when you receive quite a bit of funding for future projects. So you're going to look at your general fund. It is up quite a bit, but it's the coronavirus money that is sitting in there that has restrictions on it. And the water fund transferred the coronavirus money into the general fund as well. Your street fund is up because of an ODOT grant. These gentlemen are going to help you spend that money, I believe, with what's happening here. And so that was sitting there at the end of the year, which is going to be expended in 24 and 25 and down the road a little bit. And if you were to look at your water fund, it went down quite a bit. So capital project, transfer of money to the general fund. I mean, that's truly the big things that happened in fiscal year 23. As always, we looked at some of the Oregon requirements as far as how you do your budgeting, how you do your procurement. We didn't have any findings with that either. So in the grand scheme of things, it was a nice, I'd say quick, clean audit that was done. Marissa does a very good job in getting us the information that we need. We appreciate that. She's learned our questions and how to get us the information that we need, and that always takes a year or two of somebody in a position to do that. So we were definitely happy with the way that the audit went, and it was filed timely. So I'm standing here in case people have questions. That's why I am really here. So.
Well, nicely done, and hats off to Marissa too. Thank you.
Right. And what is the appropriate communication path? So you will take questions from the council, right? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I know that too.
But I'm hired by the council to perform the audit, and that's why I like to stand here. I don't always get to do my presentations. It's better this way. You're not going to email me and ask me questions. I mean, that just doesn't happen. But I like to be here. It gives you the opportunity to ask questions, but also then realize I'm here. You can ask me questions at any time during the year. That's really what my role is for as well.
Okay. Does anyone have questions?
I don't have any questions, but I want to say, I didn't look at all of last year's report, but this one is more detailed and a little easier to read. And I want to thank you for that.
Okay.
Some of it, not all of it, not all of it.
No,
It's a deep subject, and I'm sure all of us will admit that we don't understand some of it, but having you make your presentation puts us at ease and makes us feel like we've done our job, they've done their job, and you've done your job. So thank you.
and I really do emphasize that management discussion and analysis. It is concise, so it's easy to read. You can kind of understand the ups and downs right here. Or you can go look at giant spreadsheets like I do every day.
I think it's especially good to have you say, looks good. I mean, that's what we all
Yeah,
want, and that's
that's
what you
great.
found, and that's outstanding. I spend a lot of time going through the paperwork that comes out of the office, and I don't even always understand that, but this is beyond that. But what I looked at, wonderful information that we do need.
Yeah. And we appreciate the consistency in how the documentation is being done. That really speeds up the audit, because it's not a lot of back and forth with questions, because things are different. And so that just is learned over time as well.
We're switching software firms.
I'm not sad about
Same
that in the grand scheme of things.
You're not?
No,
Okay, good.
no.
Same question.
It will be a little bit more work in just getting the initial setup done, but it's just the way it is.
Well, that's great news. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then I'll get out of the way and you can spend all your money.
You know what happened?
So we did it in the correct order. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have Civil West Engineering and all kinds of interesting news about Sheridan Road, Hebert Plaza, the Water Master Plan, crossing improvements on Harney Bridge Streets and Monroe Bridge Streets. Southside Park Footbridge. It's just incredible, so take it away.
I think it sounded a lot more exciting than most.
Oh, well, we're excited.
So we do have a few updates on some of the things we're working with, or working on.
This is Tim.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is city
My name is Tim Gross, I'm with Civil West Engineering. Been doing this a long time, and we've worked on many things for you. We're gonna talk about a few of them tonight, and what the status is, and then also a little bit about when you can expect to see things going in the ground. And so we're gonna start with Sheridan Road. We came in and spoke with you about this probably 2 months ago now. And on the right is the rendering that represents the kind of the cross section that the council would like to see out there. And the left is what the council gets to see now. But based on funding, we're able to move forward more quickly with the water portion of this. Water supplies is probably one of the larger deterrents to multifamily density out on Sheridan Road right now. And so I know there's some development that's being proposed out there, but they don't have water supply. And so I know that there are both some grant funds and some internal funds that the city has right now. And it doesn't hurt to put the water in first, because it really doesn't have any impact on the rest of the things that you're gonna do. And so we're gonna put the water design together first. It sort of walks hand in hand with what we'll talk about a little bit after this, is the water model. Because we wanna have sort of our water model stacked together, so when we do design on Sheridan Road, we make sure we put in all the things that we wanna do in anticipation of what the city's gonna look like 5, 10, 20 years down the road, including, you know, what changes in density are gonna be, or what the changes in the east side of Sheridan might look like, and then how this water line will affect that. And so although we will do the water line first, you know, we put together a lot of the basics of design for the rest of the road. And one of the things that Pacific Power is waiting for is like a 30% design, because they want to know where to sort of plunk things. And so when we go through the water design, we'll actually have that 30% design, and we'll hand that off to them, and they can start doing their thing at the same time we're advancing the rest of the design for the road. So, you know, we can put a water design together pretty fast, and I would suspect probably later this year you'd be able to take that to bid and put that in the ground, and then depending on where funding comes in, you know, maybe next year look at the actual road improvement. So I think it depends a lot on the financing on that. So
because the undergrounding is the part that's difficult to.
the undergrounding is the part that's difficult, and we can do the work that's necessary for them to be able to underground and do the rest of the project, but you'd still end up having poles there for a while. But then everything's there, so then they can come along behind you and put all the infrastructure in the conduit that you already put in, and then those poles go away. You know, so then you actually have a little bit of sidewalk you sort of keeps in where those poles used to be, but it's just the order of things have to work in. Hebert Plaza, I wish, now that I think about it, I wish the drawing was a little bit bigger on the left. So this is a little bit of a rendering about what the plaza might look like in the future. But the plaza design, I met with Ernie about this within the last few weeks. And we talked a little bit about what the overall sort of function of that park will look like. And so as a result, I put together a preliminary parking lot layout. And the reason for that is I wanted to know where the sidewalk and the landing for the boat launch would end. So that when someday you come in and want to develop a parking lot there, we know what the sizes need to be. You know, I need to have a certain size aisle and a certain length parking spot and all this stuff, and it sort of tells you where the end of the sidewalk's gonna be. And so there's a whole lot of discussion that will have to take place to do a parking lot there. But we wanted to make sure that, well, whatever we do now doesn't get dug up and redone when somebody puts a parking lot in. In addition to that, there's a little bit of a sidewalk that runs on the north side of the future proposed parking lot, because there's a desire to put a ramp off of the landing and come down to that parking lot. And so that will facilitate your being able to do that. Think of that ramp as having to be a little bit of a bridge, because obviously it's a deck. And so I can't run concrete right up against it. I also want to run concrete to a certain point. And so I envision you probably will do the sidewalk, that boat landing, which is basically an asphalt path, and then that little bit of sidewalk that would be on the north edge of the parking lot. And then after that, then sort of phase 2 of this project would be you replace the deck boards on it. They'd replace the very last beam, which would now go on the new wall. And it would be all on the city's property at that point, and then somebody can fabricate whatever that ramp would be, and you have a place to connect the landing. That's sort of the logical progression of design and construction on this. And I could imagine if funds are in place, that all could happen this summer. The design on the sidewalk and everything is basically done. I have all the profiles and everything I need to put it together in a bid package. I'm super busy. And so, you know, I work on this and I sort of set it aside and I work on the next thing. And so, you know, it would be nice to actually get quotes from a contractor to start this work in May. So it means it's just right around the corner. And so, there's nothing holding us back other than me having the time to just put the plans together. So, there's a profile on this a little bit. If you can scroll around the screen and find it, it's a little bit below that. Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
And so, what's a little weird is what you're looking at is if you're looking south at the plaza. And on the left is the bridge, and in the middle is the plaza itself, and on the right is the sidewalk. And it all looks like nice straight lines. And in fact, that sidewalk is actually curving into the screen. But what it represents is what the grade of the sidewalk is. And what we try to accomplish here is make this an ADA accessible sidewalk as much as possible. It's really steep. And so what you have to do over a certain grade is you have to have landings every 30 inches of rise. And so if you look at that, it sort of does this little stair step as you go up the hill. But what it does is it gives somebody who's disabled and in a wheelchair an opportunity to stop and rest when they're going up, or stop screaming down the hill when they're going down. And so we have the grade to do it. It worked out. And the boat launch itself was pretty steep. It's like 17%, but usually that's people with kayaks and stuff when they're lugging it down the steep hill, and it's not a problem. This is the one that we wanted to try and make as compliant as possible. And really all the way to where we tie into the parking lot. You know, that parking lot is developed, you can have ADA accessible parking spaces there. They have an ADA accessible route all the way down to the bottom of the plaza here. And then we can take a look at what it would take to get access to the river for people who have disability issues. And so I think it's really sort of the start of a really overall larger great access for the river for the city. Moving along, sorry.
That's exciting.
How much of a drop are we talking about here with that sidewalk?
Much
The ramp itself, just discussing, you know, what the.
Oh, it's like a 30-foot elevation difference between the parking lot is and the bottom of the plaza there.
And then the reason I'm asking is I didn't deal with it, but the building I was in dealt with it. Is it 1 inch per foot for ADA quality?
Maximum 2% for a landing. And then I can't be more than 8.65% as a grade anywhere. But then when I think it's 5.25%. When I get steeper than that, then I need to start putting in landings every 30 inches of elevation gain. And so you'll notice, I want to say it's like 7 to 8% in between the landings. So I'm over the 5.25, but below the 8.65. And it's a little steeper than I had it before, because I actually pulled the sidewalk back in order to fit a parking lot in there. So there will be a little bit of fill on the edge of the hill there in order to facilitate that. But at some point in time, when you actually develop a parking lot, you need that. And then you don't have to dig anything up because we already know how the grades are going to work. But really, I have all the grades inside the parking lot.
Sounds like you've got a good hand on the reason I asked some folks that were kind of building I work in, didn't get it right. And they built it all in cement. It's over $1 million to pull it all back out and pour it again at the right angle.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. No.
Exactly.
And so it's really important when they're constructing it that we do inspection reports and things, because my grandmother's house was literally this close to a railroad. The family conversations at dinner always sort of have to pause, like when the train would go by.
Silver bird shaking.
And you can probably hear me, but the people on the computer probably can't.
Yeah.
How long are your trains?
This feels longer than, and it's faster right now.
Yeah,
was really fast this afternoon too.
Oh,
That's all pretty good.
It was bad.
Any more questions on the Hebert Plaza?
Let me mention real quick, so the plan is for us to go out for bid for construction. And then once we get those numbers back, we'll circle back and make sure that we have enough money to.
Well, and the project, and so here's the steps that I will take, is that the design and the grades and the elevations and all the things, all the engineering stuff, done. I need to put it into a package that a contractor can look at and bid. But you're gonna be below where you actually have to go out for bid. You can solicit quotes for the work. And so when we get to that point, I'll have an engineer's estimate of costs, so the city can take a look at it, we can verify what we're gonna do, that you have the money in place before we do anything, is getting that estimate of cost in place. I have all the information I need to be able to do that now, if it's not done again. And so that's what I'll do with Heidi, we'll make sure that we're golden, and we can get the project documents together, get the quotes that are necessary, and I imagine the case from the value is gonna come back to council for your review and approval of whatever that contract is. So you'll see that within the next month or so.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Told you there'd be good news.
Yeah.
Master plan,
Okay.
we have been mining data, to be able to populate a water model. And I think most people, have no idea why engineers like building water model, but it helps us to be able to predict what you need to do in your community over the course of, the next 20 years as development comes that you don't know is coming, if that makes any sense. So right now, we are able to say, based on the urban growth boundary and how your zoning is set up, we predict you're gonna have density like this, and it's gonna look like that, and we set up our water model, and it's beautiful, and you need this size pipe going this direction, and you need that size pipe going that direction, and we're good to go. And the development comes along that doesn't look anything like that at all. But what you're able to do then is you can take this water model and you can say, okay, I was not expecting somebody to come in and propose multifamily density here, or they wanna put in an airport over there, or whatever it looks like. You can put that demand in your model and almost instantaneously figure out what it's gonna do. And then you're able to predict and get your development to pay for itself. Because if for whatever reason somebody comes in and they wanna build this development, that is not what you anticipated, and has an impact on your infrastructure that allows you to collect those dollars back, or have that developer invest in that infrastructure for the purposes of being able to do that without you paying for it. And so without that model, you just don't really know. It's a tool to inform development in the future. You literally hand that over to the developer and say, you cannot have a negative effect on our infrastructure. And so you need to prove to us that your impact on our infrastructure is either going to be supported by the infrastructure that's in place, or you're going to propose how you're going to improve that infrastructure to be able to support your proposed development. So I was busy writing away on my design standards today, and that applies to not just the water master plan, but stormwater, wastewater, drinking water, transportation routes, the whole thing. And the design standards sort of spell that out for the developer. And this is one of the tools that we use to do that. And so we got all of the billing for the city and also your water production for the city, which are not the same, which should surprise you. So we're able to calculate out water loss. We're able to sort of predict what your water demand should be. And we're also able to tell where you have significant water users. And so, I don't go and assign a value to every house. We come up with a typical single family home water consumption, and that sort of gets splattered across everybody. And then you have 10, 15, 20 significant water users, and then we can place those. Or we have things that require high water demand, that like a school, a hospital, whatever, that have a lot higher fire service demand than other places. So we can plunk that all in and see where you might have deficiencies, where you may want to invest in water infrastructure in the future, and then also sort of test future development. So that's what this is. Right now we're in the building the water model part of it. But those are all like basic master plan stuff. Everybody does the same thing, sort of. We're also in this particular master plan is a little bit different, that we're also looking at Stony Mountain. And Stony Mountain is going to have its own section. Stony Mountain's awesome.
Yeah.
But it doesn't neatly slide into a master plan, other than the fact that it's someplace that you'd look for, like your water source component of the master plan, you know, you analyze what your water sources are, what its ability to provide water for you over 20 years is, you know, what some of the risk factors are associated with that. And we know that the South Camp has some risk factors associated with it. And so you have this great resource at Stony Mountain. And so we're going to take a look at, you know, how much water does Stony Mountain produce? What's the quality of the water in Stony Mountain? How can you use some of the water supply that you currently have in the springs up there that don't go to Stony Mountain? And sort of all this sort of, you're moving the puzzle pieces around to make it work for you. And so that'll be part of it. But right now we're really into the model piece of it. I have a bunch of projects that I'm trying to get out the door for construction this year. So they sort of taken my time at this moment, but get them out today and we'll be back into the master plan full force. And in the spring, we'll have a lot better updates to you on some of the things that we're able to find out as we get that working. So, any questions on the water model?
I'm pretty excited about Stony Mountain, so.
One of the things that's cool is that your path engineer had some really good JS data. It's not completely accurate because it's like a garbage in, garbage out, like where they got their data from might have plugged something not quite in the right place, but it's a great starting point. And so we're going to advance that with both the water model, because when we do the water model, we sort of connect a network together of how your water system works that we can then reflect through that GIS model. So they go back and forth with each other. And so when we're done with this exercise, at least the water component of the GIS map is going to be far more accurate, and it'll give Gary his crew the ability to provide much better utility locates, be able to identify utility meters, things like that at a much higher level of accuracy. And so I can give you an example of what that looks like. In the city of Newport, there's a resort down in the bay, and there's a 12-inch line that crosses the bay right through the middle of the resort. And that water line, we had a water valve, the top blew off of it on a 12-inch water main. And so it was running about 2,500 gallons a minute, and it flooded the resort, and it flooded their basements, and it wiped out their sidewalk going to their fishing piers and caused a lot of tens of thousands of damage to this resort. And so there were valves all over the place that we had to find, and we didn't have an infrastructure map that was more than basically the hand-drawn old version. And so it took us 2 hours to find all the valves to isolate this. So this thing ran for 2 hours. And so I'm like, yeah, we're not gonna have that happen again. So we got really into mapping our infrastructure, putting together this really good map. And several years later, we were doing a project through the exact same resort, putting in storm drain there, and the pipelines were old, and so the heavy equipment broke the same water line, almost in exactly the same place. And we had the valve shut in 20 minutes. Because I could walk up to them in the dark, I knew exactly where it was, I was able to tell you exactly what valve it was, and there was literally no damage to the resort of any kind. That's the value of a highly accurate map like that, is that not only is helpful for your own staff to be able to do their jobs well, to be able to meet the requirements of their utility locate standards, but it helps you to prevent damage for your customers. And it helps you to prevent water loss. So it's a really important tool that's going to come out of this process that I think will be a real value to you. So, moving along.
Okay, next slide, Dana.
So now we're getting into, you zoom out on that a little bit.
I'm going to do that.
Chris Janigo, Mike here is not here, but he's been working on this. And these are the pedestrian crossings on Bridge Street, Harney, Monroe. And this is an area where people have been complaining about visibility is bad for pedestrians. And so these pedestrian improvements are, number one, making the crossings ADA compliant, but also improving visibility via bump outs and pavement markings and some other things. And so these will be coming along. I think he's getting quotes on this, isn't he?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Do you want us to do like one screen?
Or you can zoom on in any of
Yeah.
this if you'd like, yeah.
See a little bit closer.
I should have printed this whole thing out so you can have a version of it, but, so some things you'll notice, so look at the pedestrian crossings, and in this instance here on Harney Street, there are 2 white lines, and when you're on Bridge Street, they look like a ladder. And the reason for that is that, the ladder bar pedestrian crossings, called the Continental Crossing, have a lot better visibility than the white lines do. And so you'll see on the left there where the box is, we're doing a bump out, but one of the things that made the project expensive was that we ended up cutting off the storm drain. Like the street won't drain anymore because now there's a big bump out of concrete there. So there's actually going to be a channel. We're going to leave the curb open with a channel and put a grate over the top of it, similar to what you see in front of a garage door. It allows the water to continue to run down the gutter line without being impeded by the concrete island. And it's completely ADA, and there's no storm drain improvement necessary then. And so it's the least cost option, and it actually looks kind of cool. And then the two parallel lines are typically what you would use on a street that's a full stop condition. And so sometimes we add dot bars to them, but other times we'll just do the two parallel bars. But that's the difference between the two. So when you see a ladder bar versus a parallel bar, you know that there's either through traffic or no stop in those circumstances typically.
So that's the one that is nearest the Country Bargains and IGA. And then this one,
And Monroe Street is one way left, if I'm not mistaken.
yes. So
This is
it's
why there's a ladder bar there. It's not
the one that was
Rose
long
and
as
the
a building.
current US Bank, yeah, and then the Hyder building is on the right hand side.
The
So you
bump
wanna talk
outs
about
help
that one?
because it brings the pedestrians past parked vehicles. And one of the challenges, real challenge for pedestrian crossing is when they step out behind a parked car. There's a lot of pedestrian accidents that way. And the bump out, all it really is doing is getting you to a point where you can still be on a safe landing and you can see beyond the car and they can see you.
So you wanna talk about this one here, so this is the Rose US Bank Hyder building, right?
You mean the one on the left?
Yes.
So there's a big island there and we were looking at putting in landscaping. But it becomes really difficult to maintain landscaping in an atmosphere like that. So we're looking at concrete again, but there's bike racks being proposed for that location. It's a challenging little island because there's gas lines and storm drain lines and all kinds of things that are there. And so we have to be a little careful what we propose because anything that we would do would impact those utilities. And so then sort of the landscaping garden sort of went out the door because you'd be digging into all these utilities. And so it's probably gonna be concrete and what that concrete looks like. Right now, I think it just proposes straight up concrete with just typical joints in it. But if for whatever reason you want, it could be put as a decorative concrete or sand or whatever.
Is that on the right? Is that what you're talking about? The concrete's on
Could
the-
be.
Yeah, see
And
the
then
dark
gray.
gray with the two boxes,
Yes.
C5 and C4.
And then on the
Out
right
front
of
of
the
the
drawing.
Hyder building essentially.
So what's
There's
one
one
big,
proposed in there.
one big pop out? Is that what that is?
I'm sorry.
Is that one big pop out there?
Yeah, it's one big island, yeah, bumps it out there. And that one doesn't have the drainage issues because I believe it goes either way. And so if there's not a catch basin or something, that would be conflict with it.
And that's nice, because that could also open it up for outdoor seating,
It would help, it makes the sidewalk a lot wider there.
yeah, or sales or whatever, sales racks.
It would take away from parking.
Nobody can park in the intersection anyway, so that would be a no.
Is that the full intersection on the other side?
I mean, they're not supposed to park in the intersection. I don't know if they do.
I have to go back there and take a look because, you know.
But if they are, you should mark it. as
No,
a
no,
parking
on
lot.
the Hyder side.
The other bump out would have an impact on one space. On the one we looked at on the left, that one would take out a space.
But then we thought about moving it down too. So I'll show you that when we go.
Okay. And I'm sorry, Chris has been working on these.
Yes, Chris.
And he's like, look, this is what I did. And he told me really fast, and here I am talking about it, but I didn't do, and they've only seen once. Can you move on to page 6?
Yes, so that's a very exciting, both of those crossings downtown. And that's soon too.
Yeah, I think Chris is getting quotes on those.
Yeah.
He's in contracts right now. It's been way out. This is the bridge at South Park, I believe,
Well,
Southside.
there's been a misunderstanding. This is the bridge we are thinking about putting there.
Yeah.
This isn't anyone there currently.
So we've been doing some research into the bridges and costs of bridges and where you can get a bridge from. And so this is a bridge we did for Kernville, Glen Eden Beach, Lincoln Beach Water District. They needed to get a bridge to their water plant that was not on the floodplain because when it would flood, they couldn't get to their water plant. So that's where the bridge came from. And so this is actually a flatbed rail car. And so we sent some pictures over to Heidi to look at this, because you can buy these, there are companies that just resell them, they take the trucks off of them, they take all the ladders off of them, and it basically becomes a structural member that is about 80 to 90 feet long. And so it's just about the right size for Southside Park. And the pictures you see here are the actual bridge that was constructed for KGV. They run heavy equipment across it, which is why they have a post in the middle. If you look they got nervous because it bounces
Oh.
when they drive their excavator across it. So they put a post in it. You don't need to do that. This thing is more than strong enough to handle any vehicle you decide to drive across it. But it does have more flexibility when you support it on the ends, because the trucks are actually about 10 or 15 feet in the rail car normally. And so now you've extended it out where you're supporting that thing way out on the ends. And so if you put a huge amount of weight, like a track hoe on it, like they're doing, it will bounce. But I would imagine this is mostly gonna be a pedestrian bridge for you. You're gonna be running lawnmowers across it and things like that. It has more than sufficient capacity to support something like that. This particular design by us really was just the footings on either side, and then the coordination of getting a crane in to swing it into place, because it comes in one big piece. And then the district coordinated manufacturing rails on it, and this particular one has square tubing with stainless steel cables. But you can really put any kind of rail on it that you want. Some people will do like wood decking to make the walking surface more attractive. You can see it's a big steel plate surface right now. But what the nice thing about this is it provides you the structural numbers, and then you can do whatever aesthetics to it you want. Paint it, decorate it, whatever the case may be. I mean, it's not set in stone that this is what it is, but we're getting pricing on this because it is very affordable.
It's in our budget, and the other ones are not.
I wanna say we bought this car for $27,000.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And then, but there's
Delivered.
also costs. Yeah, there's also costs though for other things, like
Yeah.
the installation and all of that, so we have to be very conscientious about the full costs associated.
Yeah, if there's footings you put on either side, you're gonna need to rent a crane to swing this thing off. In this particular instance, I had to take a bunch of trees down because there wasn't enough room for them to get the crane and swing the bridge. It's a 90-foot long pick, and so you need some space to be able to move the bridge. But it worked really slick, and it does a good job for them.
And Sheridan has, as we all know tonight, a rich history around trains, and so I think that this, you know, we can do some really nice signage about the history, you know, of Sheridan and trains and how that's connected, and so then we can tie it in nicely.
And all of that
Sheridan, the fabric of Sheridan.
would fit with, in our, the parks grant that we have for.
That's all a part of the
So we
parks.
don't need to worry about a lot of.
The budget, no, we just need to worry about the budget of the grant.
Okay.
I know where you can get one for free if you're willing to dig it out of the woods.
I don't exactly know what that means, but.
There's one up in the reservoir that has been tipped off into the canyon forever. It's like out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh my goodness.
Used to be for a logging operation, and then the guys used to go out there, people were running their four-wheel drive trucks out there, so the logging company sort of dragged it into the canyon. And left it. Yeah. you're an entrepreneur. Design standards. One of the tasks we're working on is putting together not just drawings, which is what these represent, but also standards that developers are obligated to comply with.
I don't know if they know much about the standards.
Yeah, so design standards, when you have a developer come into your community, inform them and regarding what type of equipment you use, what sort of design they're required to give you, what their plans should show when they submit them to you for a review. So you have a comprehensive submittal that meets the standards that you're looking for in your community with the same types of equipment that your public works guys already use, so that they're able to, number one, maintain it. They have their parts on hand. They are able to swap that out with, say, the fire hydrant you bring in, they can put a different one in, and they have it in their yard. Those sorts of things. It also defines what your expectations are in terms of what the water system should look like, what sort of materials they should be putting in that. What sort of stormwater standards do you have? The Lima River has a TMDL, and you have your own compliance plan. You know, we will reference that and are obligated to conform to that. Things like that. And so what you're looking at right here are what we call standard details, and it gives the contractor, the developer, and the engineer very specific information on how to install those types of things. And so there's really three components of the design standards. There's what I'm going to call the text, which is what I'm going through right now. And that is, you know, the city of Sheridan has this many people, and when you come in and you do a submittal, this is what it's going to look like, and this is who you're going to give it to, and this is how the review process works. That sort of stuff. Then there are the details, which are very specific about how to construct something, so that there's no questions on how you put a fire hydrant in. And then the third one is actually technical specifications. So how you test for water lines, how you test sewer lines, how you test manholes, how you put in manholes, what materials are included in that, and that's a technical spec. And whenever we put a plan set together, we sort of sandwich all that stuff together. And ideally what you have with this is that when a developer comes in, he takes your technical specs, takes your details, and he sort of puts them on the back of the drawing that he has that's specific to his development, and you get the same product every single time. And then your developments, or your review people, in some instances, it might be us, it might be your land planners, it could be the fire marshal, it could be anybody who has regulatory authority over what happens development-wise in your community, has the same tool that they're gonna be able to use to review that development for sufficiency and safety and compliance with city standards. And ideally what it'll do is it'll save you money, long run. It'll allow your developers to be able to answer questions right away without having to ask anybody. It will be able to post this on your city webpage. A developer will be able to download that. They'll understand what their expectations are. There's not gonna be any surprises in terms of what you're gonna require for development or improvements. And, I mean, that's ideally how it works. And, it's something you could probably modify over time as things change, standards change, things like that. But it's a good start. And, shoot, we're really getting close now. I have all the drawings done. Gary's already reviewed them, told me the equipment he wants to include in them. They just need to be updated from that perspective. I have all my technical specifications completed, and I'm just wrapping up the rest of it. And so, I'm hoping to have this over to Gary and Heidi in 2 or 3 weeks most. And they'll review it, and then we'll be able to publish it. And, it's a great tool for development.
Time for construction season.
Just in time for construction season.
So.
Build it like this.
Yeah, so this has been a dream for Public Works, especially for Gary. This is something that more small cities see this because this, the standards that the city has been using at Sheridan is actually the city of Salem standards that we've been leaning on for years. And so this really gives it, our own, what we do here approach, and it matches better to all of the different development types that you see in Sheridan. And so this will come back to the city council after we've had our edit as staff. It will come to you as a resolution to be approved.
And some of these are, ODOT does a really good job with some of their drawings on some things. And so, you don't want to reproduce, reinvent the wheel for things that you're gonna fall back on an ODOT standard anyway. So I'm talking about things like erosion and sediment control practices. How many times do you need to draw something that has, bio rolls around a catch basin? And so what I do is I simply refer them to those standard drawings that everybody in the construction industry uses. And then these are very specific to Sheridan. This is how we build our water service. This is parts we use. And so I try to steer away from those sort of generalized things. People get confused because if you have an engineer that's used the same detail forever, why not let them use the same detail if it doesn't harm anything? And then they just deal with the specific Sheridan things when they come here.
Yeah, some cities get really bogged down in the details.
And that was the challenge with Salem, is Salem is so much more complex than Sheridan is. And they have so many more things and programs and things that they require and all this stuff is right out the window, all those things I just tossed them. And we kept the things that are the basics to make sure that you have the ability to build good infrastructure and maintain it long term. That's the goal. Build good infrastructure, maintain it for cheaply and as long as you can. That's your design standards. The end.
Some approachable. Sounds like a plan. The Salem ones weren't always approachable either, you find yourself like.
Yeah, it's trying to make it so that anybody can pick it up and understand what they need to do. Because some of the design standards are written just for engineers. I'm like, you know what? Most of the time, the guy picking that up is not an engineer, he's a developer, he's an investor, he's a homeowner, he's a contractor. And you need to write it in language that they can understand what they can and can't do on their own. And sometimes you don't want necessarily to have a full stormwater report done if somebody's coming in and building a single family home. You want it very clear to them what they need to include on their plot plan for their house that's not beyond them to be able to produce for you. To not make the cost of housing very high or make them hire an engineer, when all they have to do really is put in a new curb in front of their house and that's it. You don't need an engineer to design that for them all the time. Sometimes, but not all the time. Keep it simple when that's the worst, is when a developer comes in and hands over infrastructure to you and you can't maintain it. That is by far the worst, it makes me so mad. Then they're done that, yeah, so. Any questions for me? Even if it's on something that's not associated with just using these stuff.
I think you've just kind of inspired us and given us hope that some of these things are gonna happen over the next few
Oh,
months.
absolutely, there's absolutely no reason to us to go on that.
Anyway, thank you.
What will be the next step on Sheridan Road? Will we get some renditions?
I'm gonna put a water drawing together and you're gonna get a cost
I
estimate
heard you talk about
associated
the
with
water, and that's the next, okay.
Yeah.
But-
I mean, to do the water line, I have to sort of draw the curves in, you know, to make sure I don't run into something that's already there, you know, so there's an existing water line that's gonna have to stay there when you build your new water line, because people live on the street. And so what I'm doing, I'm sort of weaving this in between the infrastructure that's already there, thinking about what other infrastructure we will build when we do Sheridan Road. That's a little bit of a challenge, but I already sort of had it laid out that way because I knew that we have to keep the water line there when we build the new water line. And so I think what you'll do is you build a new water line, get all the connections to all the cross streets, and you'll have the whole thing tested and flushed and everything else. And all they'll do is simply take the service lateral that are going to the old water line and connect it to the new water line. And then you abandon the old water line in place, and that becomes the place where your new storm drain line goes. And that's why I actually kind of like doing it this way, because it opens up real estate for the next project. When you do it in phases. Yeah, it's a small narrow right of way, and you got a lot of stuff going on, and so it's nice to be able to get the water where it needs to go. It doesn't have to be touched. Nobody's gonna hopefully break that when they do the rest of the construction, because your water line is old and not very strong right now. And so there's a very high likelihood the contractor would have broken it many times during construction. And in this instance, you're putting in brand new materials that are very resistant to forces and vibration and all the things that are associated with construction. And ideally, you'll be able to keep people in water throughout the course of the construction of the project. So.
Cam?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask about, Sheridan Road as well. Something I don't remember if it was, talked about or brought up is like school bus stops on that road, with this improvement. I'm guessing there's gonna be room for them, on either side. I think right now, I think there's a couple, school bus stops on that route. And sometimes they move locations too. But I'm just gonna ask about that. I'm not sure if we're at that phase, yet to think about.
Are you concerned about that during the construction process itself?
I was more thinking about the end result, you know, when it's finished. I'm guessing there's gonna be plenty of room to have bus stops since we're gonna be widening.
You'll have a lot better visibility when the project is complete than it does now. And so from the perspective of a bus stop, probably a better condition. But oftentimes when we do construction, we talk to the post office, we talk to the school bus companies, and we sort of try and relocate them off the construction zone. So mailboxes, we'll often put a whole bank of mailboxes up on a piece of 2x4 and move it to an adjacent street. And the mail guy always gets so crabby when he can't get to the post office, to the mailboxes. And so he doesn't bother to put the mail in at all. And then we get a million calls from people because they didn't get mail that day. So the easiest thing to do is just basically move it and let them make sure they're not in the construction zone and they get it. So that's mail. School buses can be the same way. If you have a parallel adjacent street, you can sort of shift them a block over so that the kids are not walking in your construction zone, they're walking out of your construction zone. And so maybe they walk a block further than they did before, but the school bus can always get there. They're not standing around in the middle of the ditch line. It's really helpful to get them sort of shifted over. So the coordination of Sheridan Road and the construction of that will require us to sort of work with some of these stakeholders that have delivery routes or school bus routes, or that's the way the ambulance goes to get to wherever. We need to find that stuff out so that they have tools to be able to do what they need to do. Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, if this is done, I mean, who knows when this will be done, but if it was done during the summer, I guess we wouldn't have to worry about school buses, but,
you're gonna hit both ends. You're gonna hit them before school's over, and you're gonna hit them when they're back in school. There's no question. It's a big enough project that you'll bridge the summer where they're gonna hit you on either end.
okay. All right, take it.
At least the school's not on your road, like some projects I know.
Anyone else?
Actually, I was, the railroad car bridge in the Southside Park, that's a wetland, isn't it?
It's pretty much a wetland.
Oh, yeah.
So what about with the erosion and stuff? What secures that from the ground underneath it on either side eroding?
So, to be able to bridge outside of the normal high water elevation, which is where you're regulated, you need to have at least 80 feet. And so this particular route car is 90 feet. And so that's one bit. That's just the normal high water level elevation. We also want to be aware of where the flood level elevations are. And so when we do a footing design or foundation design for the bridge, you know, we'll put in wing walls. That'll drop it below sort of the scour elevation. And so we can,
Okay.
yeah, there's a program, it's called HECRAS, that the Army Corps of Engineers puts together.
Okay.
And what we can do is as long as we know what the creek looks like from a cross-section perspective, I can program that into my little program, and I can figure out what the normal stream flows are there and what the flood stream flows are, and I can actually sort of draw in my bridge, and I can predict scour. And so that's how we would do that.
Okay.
Another model that engineers like to use, but it's a pretty normal way of designing a bridge footing so that you don't lose the bridge when it floods. Yeah, it could even overtop the bridge, and that happens many times. And you just have the foundations designed such that the bridge can support that once in a very, very wild flooding.
And that's another reason why we ended on this bridge really is because of the span that it can go. And so it takes us a much longer way out of those, issues.
Yeah.
So if you can just dodge the problem, that's the way to go.
So that's what we decided was gonna be the easier and quickest route, was to try to dodge those issues as much as possible. And so we just kept coming back to the same.
And the least expensive song.
I doubt you have the river, I doubt you have the water velocity that would cause the problem. You know, maybe you have flood elevations, but it's when you have the river that's really screaming underneath your bridge that you start having scour issues. And I don't think you have that in this situation. You might have the flooding backing up, but you don't have the velocities going, that causes the problem. We'll figure all that out when we do the footings. Yeah. It's actually not all that hard.
And we're considering aesthetics too, very much. Bringing us back to that.
We could bring on a boxcar instead and it could be covered bridge.
That'd be nice. Watch our children.
Any other questions for me?
That doesn't look like it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hopefully you'll start seeing some things happening, because now we're getting to the construction phase of life. So I'm sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Civil West team.
Thank you. You're welcome. We'll see you again.
The best in the West.
There's rumor you're just having budget discussions, so we're bailing.
Oh,
We missed them.
yeah, you just. Well, that's another announcement. Kevin has been working on a grant for us for,
The lead service.
Yeah.
We just put in a grant for, the lead, the city has lead service lines that are being mandated to be replaced. So there is funding available through the federal government through a program, 50% grant money to help replace the lead services. The unique part of this funding package, which is interesting, is a lot of funding is typically in the public sector, public side of a project because of just the funding and different things. But this program actually will allow you to go into the residents' side and replace their service line or their valves or whatever that need to be done on the service side, which is great. But there's some complexities because of course you've got to get permission from every single property owner to access the property. So there's some logistics, but no, great funding opportunity to basically clean up your water from the lead side of things. So yeah, we just submitted that. And we'll see. You should get funding, and there's a lot of money for that initiative. So
we're $500,000 that we submitted for.
$500,000 for that. Yeah.
Now, I told Kevin that people trust somebody in a flannel shirt more than they do in a button-down white shirt. So,
Doing a
not
vote.
true. I'm looking for, don't let me be attorney. This is their uniform.
No tie.
Exactly.
Always gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, and if you're ever at Newport, swing by our office. It's a cool office.
Okay.
We have an espresso machine.
We all show up at once.
Okay. Is Scott over there? Scott is not, so
Okay.
I am here to collect, the information. He just left me with the task of making sure that everything is a consensus of what
Alright.
needs to be added for any of the goals, and so I am here to do that, but, you know, I spoke with you this afternoon, you and Jen, about a few things that I would like the council to consider, and then I thought of two more.
I have notes on my one, and I see that, well, first of all, Counselor, did you get a chance to read the revisions to the letter from the Sheridan Mayor and Councilors? And did that meet with your approval? And thank you again, Kale, for your help with that, I appreciate it. And, so we made some changes there, but basically.
I had some concerns.
Okay, and what were those?
I'd like to make some changes. And if you'll let me go through all my changes first before we discuss, you might appreciate it. The first paragraph, I'd like to change some grammar. City council is capitalized, so it seems disrespectful to me not to capitalize city manager and associate project manager. Second paragraph states, these goals are in addition to existing operations.
You're looking at the street plan?
This is the letter that's going in the front of it.
Okay,
So
okay,
we
that's
haven't
the packet.
decided what we're putting there yet.
Page 63, Liz.
Of the council.
Oh, okay, thank you, sorry, we didn't
No.
get there.
So, second paragraph states that these goals are in addition to existing operations. I disagree. These goals are a part of the everyday operations of the city. And to clarify that, I'd like to omit in addition and insert included. I think everything we and the staff do should be with stated goals in mind every day. Now, in letter 1 and 2 revisions, those sentences were both mentioned, but they seem to contradict the first sentence. So, a suggestion. The third paragraph states some of our goals, and that is it.
Okay.
In the first letter, paragraph 3 had almost 2 lines to cover goals, other than code enforcement. The second revised letter would have almost 3 lines of a choice few goals. Why were the other goals not included, and who gets to choose?
I thought that in this version, actually Kale was kind enough to do these two for me, but I thought I followed on that what we did, I thought what we actually did was added infrastructure improvements suggested by Liz and development of Stony Mountain Reservoir, which was also a great suggestion to that. So you say there's something missing from that?
Yes. And I'll continue with that in a moment as part of this paragraph. These other goals are huge projects that are equally as important. For some of our citizens, it may be the only part that they read regarding our goals, this letter. I'm gonna guess that we're not going to publish the whole strategic plan, maybe on our website where it's accessible, but more likely this letter will be probably published, passed around, and maybe used in other places.
Well, you
So
know,
to mention all of the goals that we have, it would not take up too much space in this letter. That's what this letter is supposed to be about. So for some citizens, this may be the only information they get. Is this all we want others to know about our strategic plan? Is what is in this paragraph. So in the fourth paragraph, we use 7 lines to thoroughly explain the justification of code enforcement as a prioritized goal. At our last council meeting, it was discussed that it was not to be our most important goal. The code enforcement still gets the most press, and it still gets included as a priority in the second revised letter. Look at this letter. 1/3 of this letter. 1/3 of this letter, 7 out of 22 lines, and please count them, consists solely on code enforcement. This is contrary to the council's strategic plan. Priority means preference or superior, and that is what is happening by mayor using this with code enforcement. My suggestion would be to delete paragraph 4 and use all 11 of the highlighted goals that are included in our strategic goal. List them in alphabetical order, without changes, and without duplication. And yes, use the word homelessness, because that's what it is. Laura presented our strategic plan with 7 specific goals, including metrics and targets. We need to include all 11 goals. In the 5th paragraph, I would like to include, as elected officials and staff by the city, that we also want to do what is best for the city by Sheridan to the best of our ability, knowledge and ability. So my point here is, we have 11 goals and they're important. So why do we continue to single out code enforcement as the goal to emphasize and make such a big deal of, when it isn't more important than the rest of them? This council never did and did not prioritize code enforcement. So please don't try to infer that we have. That's why we're revising this letter for a 3rd time. If the mayor continues to disregard council's directions to put code enforcement ahead of other goals, I will not sign this letter. And I would encourage the rest of the council not to either. I hope this council will join me in cautioning the mayor for not conducting herself in proper council protocol. You are to accept the decisions of the council either by vote or consensus without overriding our decisions with your personal agendas. I have a revised letter that I'll pass around. The council can consider that lists all of these goals and the corrections and changes that I've made. We can consider that.
Thank you. Do you want Heidi to have one?
Are you finished, Betsy?
I'm done.
Okay, so in this letter, we got pretty high praise from Laura Conroy, conducting a meeting for it, that she thought that it flowed well. She advised us at that meeting not to list everything. She says, that's not what this is. This is just kind of an introductory to the Strategic Plan Booklet. And we did that, and I certainly did listen to what everybody had to say and made notes. And I worked also with Kale on this and back and forth. And I thought she was very complimentary in the way that we worked on this together as a council, with everybody's suggestions being taken to heart. So I completely disagree. I don't have an agenda on this, and I was simply trying to get the work done, to get this part of the work done. So I'm happy to capitalize these things, and anyway, I disagree with you, but this is going to be up to the council. So, yes, Liz?
I had some of the same feelings when I read the letter. One thing that I don't like that you are prioritizing code enforcement when we're hiring a code enforcement officer. So part of that goal has already been completed. And I think the residents want to know what the overall picture looks like. What are the council goals for this city? They live in this city. So I think Roxy's right. We should list the goals so people are familiar with them. We should be as transparent as possible as to what our goals are for the city which they live in. And I think that, again, the council did instruct you to please not prioritize the code enforcement
we did.
issue.
It did say.
It's still prioritized. When you read this letter, that you've still put the most emphasis on code enforcement.
Okay.
However, we've already practically achieved that goal because we are hiring a code enforcement officer. That process is in process as we speak.
Okay.
And I think the other goals should be emphasized as well.
Well, I was trying to take some direction too from our planner, who's done this a lot of times before, and we did tone down the code enforcement. But what I had heard from this council in the past is that code enforcement is a high priority. And so that is the reason for, I thought I was taking direction from the council and emphasizing code enforcement because over the last couple of decades, that's been such a problem for us, and that it also affects all the other goals listed here. So you're gonna have economic development, and you're gonna have people building homes and businesses. We need to get our town cleaned up, and I thought everybody agreed with that. Jim?
This letter from Roxy, I think just saying increase code compliance in the community is a much shorter version of what you've got in your letter as far as code enforcement. But as far as what Liz said, yeah, we're in the process of hiring a new person, but it is not a 100% dedicated code enforcement officer. And I thought I heard at these meetings, that's what we were looking for, is a 100% code enforcement officer, not a whatever percentage and then the rest on emergency management. Those are two different things. Now, I don't really, I'm gonna say, we want this to be correct and usable by the city, but bottom line, to say that we're already taking care of this code enforcement problem, not at all. We've got a long ways to go. I have no problem with saying increase code compliance in the community. That's a priority to me. Whether it's in a paragraph or a line is irrelevant to me. I'm not Laura. I don't know about whether we put bullet points or we put it in paragraphs and not highlight all of them. But just strictly in the code enforcement area, which has been something I've been harping on since 2017, we don't yet have a full-time code enforcement officer, even though we're hiring one that will work part-time on that. So, we discussed, Heidi even said, well, if we want 100% code enforcement officer, we need to find the money. I say, great, let's find the money. But I don't want anyone to think that we have solved the issue just by our new hire that we're getting in a couple of weeks. Is that correct? A couple of weeks?
Go ahead, Liz.
I want to respond to you, Jim. I'm not saying that solves the issue. Obviously it doesn't. And it'll take a lot of time, but I don't think that's our priority. I agree with Roxy. Water's a huge priority. If you don't have water, you're not gonna live, right? The streets are a huge priority. Everybody in town is concerned about the streets. So I think that we need to add those things and put more emphasis on those things than the code enforcement.
Well, you heard me say though, this line she has in here, increase code compliance in the community. To me, that is, how do you do that? You have a code enforcement officer to do that. It's, and I haven't thoroughly gone through the packet because I wasn't here last time, unfortunately, but bottom line is, it's in here. What I heard you say was we're already taking care of it. No, we haven't.
Well, I didn't mean to imply that, is what I'm saying back to you. I'm saying in this letter, it prioritizes code enforcement.
Okay, you guys are starting a conversation here, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead, Kale.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, as far as my contributions to this letter. I know I made some edits last time, and Mayor asked me for those edits, but that was pretty much all I did, was basically just give her what I suggested. But I will say, I know, and Laura did say that we should limit what we're listing. And so at last meeting, I was like, okay, let's list this, let's list, improving this town's quality of life, and then stop it. But then I think it was mentioned, let's list this one and this one. So we're already listing like 6. And I know Laura said you don't want to list all of them, but we almost have listed all of them. So I don't know, if maybe we just wanna go ahead and list all of them, because, I think Roxy is right. I think this letter might be what people see. And, you know, we'll just add some, you know, commas and list all 12 things. You know, it might not be that much more of a stretch, and, you know, we might be able to, you know, reduce the size of the code enforcement, paragraph, if that's something we wanna do.
Okay.
We could, you know, remove some lines maybe. And it's tough to single one out because, you know, if we're gonna start explaining code enforcement and our priority on it, you know, people might ask, well, why aren't you explaining what Stony Mountain is? I mean, people who are new here may see Stony Mountain and have no idea what that is. We do, but it's tough putting that much emphasis on something, when we're gonna list 12 things and not have a lot of emphasis on. It's just what I would
Okay,
say.
I believe the council was saying that they wanted to put good emphasis on code enforcement, since we haven't really had a strong program over the last couple decades. So, but I'm fine with that. So we can take that paragraph out, really tone it down. Liz?
So I think that the letter is kind of just generalized, and this is very specific, but not boring. And I think, you know, I never did really know where this letter was going to, that you wrote in the first place. We just kind of had it handed at a council meeting. But if I was sitting out in the audience, or I was a community member, and you wanted to inform me the best that you could, I do like this format. I'm really drawn to bullet points as a business person. And this is just like a letter that I would scan, read really quick. But this, the first thing this would do would draw my eye to what is she pointing out. And then it might interest me to read the top paragraph and the bottom paragraph because, you know, now you got my interest going, and I think the people in our community need to, and I like it simple, you know, creating a plan for community buildings. I guess some people might generalize that as code enforcement, but it really is a separate thing. Enhancing communication with community members. I think this does a really good job of letting our people know that we care what they think. And then, you know, the other one was increased code compliance in the community, and I agree with that. But, you know, it kind of separates everything into their own categories, but you're not writing a letter to the editor about it. You're just, not that you did here, but it's just enough to spark the people's intelligence, which they have, to realize this is what we're working on down here. And if you have any questions, please come to a meeting or do a Zoom, but please give us your feedback because things are changing. And I like Laura, but I don't always agree with everything she said. She's not here on the council, we're the council. And that's kind of like Heidi, when she brings things, it's up to us to say, you know, I like that idea, but you know, that's not hers right now. And who knows our community better than us? And, you know, we know that they need to be informed because there have been so many years of not being informed, kind of sweep it under the whatever, that I think this just breaks it out and it makes it easier for people. But I guess, you know, that's well, they don't have a copy of the letter. But I think that this really states it. And you know, were you going to put this just on the city website or in the city?
It just goes in this booklet.
This is something that you could probably put in the bulletin board.
The water bill.
And, you know, or put it in the water bill if you don't want to put it, or do both, you know. And this kind of, you know, and then I would sign that because I want people to know. And it is every category in the little strategic plan here. So, but we're not elaborating. I mean, not one of these has, you know, 7 or 10 sentences to it. It's just, here's what we're going to do. P.S. by the way. And I think it's a nice tool to inform our community with. Not that this was anything wrong with this. It's just that it kind of reminds me of the last letter in a lot of ways. And this one seems like it's pinning down, you know, what are you really saying here? But this, when you got those bullet points, I'm telling you that people, that's what that little thing's for, you know, in constructing. When you want to get somebody's attention, at least it gets my attention.
Anybody else? Yes, Jim.
I have no problem with the bullet points. It does cover code compliance, which is one of my main concerns. It has been for years. I think I would like to add that I don't believe that you had some sort of secret or private agenda when you wrote that
I
paragraph.
did not, of course
I did
not.
not think so, but
Thank you.
the bottom line is, it's covered here. It does outline what we've operated on and what we're designed to do with the strategic plan for the city. So this one that Roxy has come up with is just fine. I don't find this necessarily wrong with your letter, but this one might point out to people more things that we're doing, and bullet points, as Lucy said, do draw attention to themselves, where this letter is not bad, but you have to read it. Some people don't like reading long letters. Like you said, bullet points might encourage people to, oh, well, what is this all about? Maybe I'll read that first paragraph, what kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm fine with what Roxy has suggested. I see no problems with it.
Okay, I guess I was relying on Laura's guidance, yes.
Just so you know, I took a picture and I sent this one to Kale, and I think he has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I just wanted to be sure he had a copy of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, are you ready, Kev?
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I think having the bullets, is helpful, and still, I think it's kind of, it still has that first part, but it really lays out, those goals, and instead of just, saying a couple words, comma, and then adding our next goal, like a short statement about the next goal, and then adding on, I think this kind of elaborates on those goals a little bit. But that's, I like the format with the bullets too.
Okay, is everybody good with partnering with other agencies to assist community members experiencing homelessness? We had worded that a little bit differently.
That's the way it's stated in the strategic goal.
Okay,
Word
All
for
right.
word, alphabetically.
all right.
I've got another comment,
Yes.
because with, Jim, I understand about the code enforcement also, and I mean, great steps have happened, because in a prior administration, there wasn't a whole lot being done with code enforcement, but when we brought Deycia on, she did such a fantastic job of getting things. I feel that we have made progress in the code enforcement from before you came on board, because he would mention them during public comment, which I agreed with that. But then when we had Deycia come on, I felt like she really, just kind of blew a lot of dust off the shelves and was really doing a great job. I would still love to have you back here, Deycia, I see you on the screen, and work part-time. But, the thing of it is, I think everybody here will admit, we have gone forward from the past, and it's all about these little steps going forward, but we have made actually sometimes even a bigger step. So I understand that code enforcement is still important, but we have moved a lot from 4 years ago to where we're sitting at today. But now we just need to keep that on a level. Maybe we don't need to have a full-time code enforcement. She did such a great job. I don't even know how that would work, because I don't have enough information to make an informed decision on a full-time code enforcer, because she did do such a great job with the community and with the way she worked. So, but I still think we should go forward, and when we're contemplating code enforcement, I don't know, they might be on the agenda tonight, maybe a part-time would be enough for our budget.
That's gonna come up, it's a little bit later.
Is it later today?
Yeah,
Okay,
so
I wasn't sure if there
so
was.
far, it sounds like you guys would like to switch to this letter, and I just wanna make sure we have a consensus on that, I think that's all we need. So, Kale, do you want to switch to this, and Lucy, yes?
Yes.
Denny?
Sure.
Okay, and you guys, okay, there it is, so do you need a copy, or do you have a copy?
I will work with Roxy to get a copy.
Okay.
We'll get it, but I have a copy in front of me,
Okay,
so, but
We'll
she,
go with
I'm
that.
sure we'll send it electronically for us.
so there you go, be better.
Send it in there.
So then for the record, Marianne, would it be published then possibly in the paper and, or like Liz was saying, in the water bill, or maybe both, along with this which I take it this is gonna be on the city website, correct, the whole thing?
I'm sure that it will be.
I can help with all of
I
that.
didn't really know,
Going forward.
yeah, I didn't really know what the whole plans were for, but,
It was just kind of a little.
but I mean, you know, maybe we can
Did a
make
lot
sure.
of work.
Point of order,
Yeah.
you're having a conversation, you've got somebody speaking.
So maybe, you know, we can put it in the bills, because not everybody reads the city website, is what I was gonna say. If they were gonna put the whole packet in the website, and you know, when they put those feelers in the water bill, I don't know, I look at mine, I glance at it, and, or if it was in the paper, that might help inform the community of what we're actually trying to do.
Okay, let's go ahead and move forward on this. Kim?
Sorry, real quick, I was just gonna say, what we could do, is post the whole plan on the website. And then if we send this letter out, in the water bill or to people, we could have a QR code on there, then they can scan it and it'll go right to the website and they can see the whole plan.
Okay, good idea. Very good. Sounds great. So Heidi, I know that in addition to that, you wanted to add a downtown economic plan, but I forgot where you wanted to add it.
Yes, okay, thank you. So I have a couple of considerations, not about the letter, but to the goal piece of this for the council. Laura and Scott simply told me to make sure that whatever you change, you're just gathering a consensus on. So, and however you wanna word this, just some food for thought for you all, but things that we have talked about, over time, and I wanna make sure, cause you know, I like to get that grant money, and so this is a great document to use, because, when you write grants, and to refer back to for the funding agencies, cause it shows that it is a priority to this group. Okay, let's see here. So one of the things, yes, like the mayor says, a downtown revitalization plan, it needs to fit, I think, somewhere in goal 1, and it really crosses over both incentivizing new businesses and recruiting new businesses. So if you don't mind, I would like to work with Laura to see where she thinks that it is the most appropriate, but it would be one of the targets. So would be to have a downtown revitalization plan. We've talked about that several times over the years, and that's one of those CDBG grants that we would like to go after, but we have to spend down, we have 2 of those kind of checked out right now. And you have to have at least one of them spent down substantially to get to a third one, to show your progress. And we are really reaching that right now with the food bank grant, we're getting there. And by the time we get all this figured out and applied for, I believe that the food bank grant will be closed out. So I would really like to add that in here, because it adds a lot of oomph really to the applying for the grant. So is everybody okay with that?
I think it's great.
Goal 1,
Somewhere in goal 1, yeah, will be either in,
will it be a red highlighted goal or below one of the existing as a metric and target?
exactly, below. It will be either recruiting new businesses or incentivizing new businesses. I think it's gonna go closer to recruiting new businesses, is really where it's gonna be, but usually those plans will have some, takeaways that involve some, you know, ideas for incentivizing new businesses. So it's really closely, it ties them together in a lot of ways. And it also, you know, goes into other pieces, but I have some of the goals, even code enforcement really. And so this, but I think that the closest it gets is the downtown business goal 1. So it will be 1, it will show up as a metric and definitely as a target. It would be to apply for the CDBG grant.
Okay, and the other,
Everybody's good with that one? Okay, then I need to put in here, apply for the construction and the engineering safe routes to school grant. And we, so that I can have that, because I'm applying for that here in just a few weeks. So we did the planning grant, we've had the engineers help me take a look to make sure that what we can get for the engineering part of that grant and what we can get for the construction part of that grant. I'm working on with Kale, we need to circle back, but I have some really good news, you know, with the school district on that. But I do want to be able to put that in here. I think that's something that we all think is very important, to have the safe routes to school, to enact all of, as many of those things in there as we can get pulled off.
so on the goal 2, excuse me.
Yeah, I was gonna put it under the updating transportation plan and invest in improvements. Has a lot to do with transportation. Yeah, routes to school. Is that good?
I didn't hear what you said.
Is that, so goal two, under updating the transportation plan and invest in improvements,
Okay.
somewhere in that area. Okay, next one. Oh, we're gonna go back just a little bit here. So page 6, updating the charter to support community demand for safe and reliable city services. So, go ahead.
I say, I have a note on the other page, that the forum committee to review charter and ordinances, is that where we're going?
Yeah.
You have it on page 6 then?
Page 6, updating the charter to support community demand for safe and reliable city services.
Okay.
So we have hold work sessions with the city manager and the city attorney to identify needed changes, city council meetings to review changes. And I think, I think this is actually pretty good, but what I wanna make sure is that you'll understand that we're back to one of those ad hoc type committees. And so there'll be 2 or 3 if you really, that need to step forward to sit and to continuously go over that. And Jim, do you mind if I finish
Hold on, go
thinking
ahead.
really quickly? Okay, and I think that that should or could be the same, as I'm gonna propose, the same group that does an ordinance review group for code enforcement. And that's something I talked about with Mary Ann and Jim this afternoon. So, which page is the code enforcement?
It's the next page. Increase code compliance in communities on page 7.
Oh, I already put that, sorry. Okay, so yes, so in that one, it's kind of, I know it's, you know, a point that we talk about often, and so adding some more matrix or at least a target seems like a good idea. And so the council's piece of all of this would be really to review all the codes that have to do with code enforcement and make sure that those are the ones that are really what you're after. Because some of the codes, as we know, are dated. So make sure that we have all the teeth that you're looking for. And I proposed to the council that the charter group and the code enforcement group are perhaps the same group. And that group will meet quite often and for a long time. So keep that in mind. The other target, so the 2026 target, you're going to talk about later, but if this is where you wanted to really sing it out, you could have your fund a full-time code enforcement officer under your 2026 goal. And so maybe that is something for you to consider under there. And then that's one of them that says to the public too, like this is why you're doing it, and this is how you're going to take this on, right? So those are the things that I would, under the matrix, update code enforcement codes. Okay, so any feedback on those?
I was gonna say, Jim.
Well, I was, looking at what we had discussed at your meeting about the ordinances. Can we just add updating the charter and ordinances? That solves a whole big sentence of trying to fit it into the strategic plan.
You could. Are you talking about updating or looking at every single ordinance and code? Or just for the 2026, just any of them that have to do with code enforcement?
They probably all
The
do.
entire code has to do with code enforcement.
Yeah.
That's not a distinction that.
Okay.
I think just looking at the ordinances,
Yes, the planning does too. You're right.
I think once you start looking at the ordinance, you go, geez,
Okay.
that's dated also, why don't we fix that while we're here? Versus, specific picking out code enforcement or picking out any one issue.
Sounds good to me, if that's what you wanna put on here, updating charter and updating codes.
Because I don't believe there's any
Yeah, that would-
disagreement that our ordinances and charter are well dated,
Sounds good.
well dated before.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so anything else on the strategic plan? Yes, Roxy.
Page 8 and page 9 are both goal 3. Is goal 3 continued on? I mean, we've gone to 3, it's not 4.
Goal 3 has 3 things under it, right? Enhancing communication.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering, is goal, page 9 included in goal 3?
Yes.
All the red numbered with goals all fall under increased community livability.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted.
Clarification. Yep, okay, correct.
I was just
You
saying,
got it.
yeah,
You agree?
yeah,
Okay.
like a thumbs up.
Yeah, so do we have a consensus, all in favor? Everyone? Okay, you do.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
So then the next thing up is whether or not to approve the budget calendar for fiscal year 24-25. It's 59, it's 60. That's so many things.
60.
Oh, there it is.
I make a motion, we approve the budget calendar for 24-25.
I second.
Okay, discussions? Okay,
Are we still looking for volunteers for the budget committee?
As far as I know, those are still, the budget committee applications are due March 3rd.
I saw that, but I just wondered if there are still spaces available.
Until Mary Ann appoints them, yes. If you're asking how many applications, that is
No,
something
no,
that
that
I don't know.
That we are expecting.
Yes, there's 3 openings, but of natural terms that expire.
okay. Any further discussion on the budget calendar? Okay, all in favor? Okay, unanimous. So, the next item was, for a full-time code enforcement officer. So I think possibly I've just been getting the wrong message, because I've been told several times that you guys are interested in trying to find a way to budget a full-time code enforcement officer. And so I was thinking that if we could just do that tonight, decide whether that is the case or that is not the case, we can give this information to Heidi so that as she works, she's been working away on the new budget, and she would, that's a considerable expense, and she would like to know probably what you guys want to take it out of in favor of that, and things like that. So basically, I would just like to know whether you're in favor of a full-time code enforcer or you are not, and then we'll have another discussion next time, a little deeper into code enforcement if you'd like. We can get that on the agenda. Okay, so, Kale? Are you in favor?
Just real quick about this. I know we're gonna discuss it. This was gonna ask Heidi, are the funds there for a full-time code enforcement officer?
Not without moving things.
I really need to, be able to really get into the weeds on that, and that I have
Okay.
just not been able to do that at that time. It's very early in the
Okay,
budget
and-
process for us.
But the sooner you know,
Okay.
it's better, right?
Yeah,
So you-
absolutely, the sooner I know the better.
Okay.
And not
The,
because of these that are.
but we do it, we have hired somebody to do code enforcement. Just right now, it's part-time. So if we did full-time, because from what I understand, they're half code enforcement, half emergency fairness, is that right? So then who would do emergency management? Would we have to hire part-time for that, or would that kind of get
Yes.
grouped into the role, or, but I'm all for a full-time code enforcement officer. If we have them on here, which it sounds like we might not, and two, as long as emergency management is still gonna be covered. But maybe this is something if we're in agreement on, we would like full-time, then maybe the upcoming budget, that we can find money for it. But that's just what I was gonna add before, the rest of you guys discuss it.
Okay, and Dave?
I believe that our goal was over a year ago, for full-time code enforcement officer, and I thought we were headed that direction. And then we found out Deycia was not a full-time code enforcer. She only spent 20% of her time, so that's 8 hours a week is what she was spending on code enforcement. And you guys may think things have really shaped up around here, but
She
I
did a
drive
great
around town
job.
every day, and I tell you, things have been asked to be cleaned up, have been a little bit, but then they have totally quit, and some of them are getting right back to where they were. It's not improved, in my opinion. It's like
Okay,
it's
so
going
you would,
direct.
so really all we wanna know is if you're in favor of full-time, and I
I
think you're
am.
saying you are. How about you, Lucy?
if, I would like to see the things that we would like to have that could be running over the budget. And I believe at this time, if Deycia was only doing it, what, 20%?
Yeah, 8 hours.
Well, I think she actually put more into it than that. I think she, I mean, that's so, yeah.
From what we've had, I felt like she was full-time code enforcer. So that's how much of an improvement I personally felt that she had made. And she also had this, little schedule that if you didn't mow your yard, she would come back and see again. So it wasn't like it just got left out, because she would go back and address the people. Remember, she was making that little sheet for us.
I just, because I want to move this along, we're gonna talk about it next week, and I don't, would you be in favor of full-time or not?
No, I'm good with, part-time or whatever Deycia is doing.
All right, thank you. And Liz, full-time or part-time?
We're having no discussion on this?
Right, we're gonna discuss it next time. I'm just wanting to know whether you guys want,
I can't make up my mind until there's a discussion.
Okay, I just was trying, what I was trying to do was give Heidi a heads up so that she could consider this in the budget process. So I just thought if I could get generally an idea of how many counselors are interested in full-time and how many not, that would be helpful. And
Okay.
we could have a full
I
discussion.
got that. So here's my question. If we have a full-time code enforcement officer, but we still need an emergency management person, is there a way to think out of the box and work with the fire department or something and collaborate with them so we save some money? And that's all I wanted to ask. Is that possible? It hasn't been done, and why not? Because, I mean, that's what they do too, so.
Yeah, they're pretty much handling what they handle during that, and then our preview is gonna be different. Like with the Stella Jones thing, there was no, I mean, the fire hall absolutely responded, but the continuous updates that we continue to go through and all of that, really, there isn't, I mean, the fire wouldn't be really under the mission statement of the fire district. The question is different, right? The question is, would they be interested? And I don't work at the fire district, so I don't know the answer to that. But as far as thinking outside the box, the emergency management piece is a piece when I came here that I saw that was lacking, and oftentimes with cities, it gets put on the back burner. Sheridan does have, we all are familiar with the flooding that happens, and there is a book that really inspires, and a book that really does call to need to be updated. Our staff needs some more direct training in the area of emergency management, because, there's a whole bunch of different things essentially that our risk management company that we've gone to would like us to be more trained on. And so it's a big job, and it can be a big job. I love the idea of course, of partnering and collaboration, so that's something that can be considered.
Jim, yes or no, full-time or part-time?
I'd like to see one thing before I say what you don't, but say, 2 meetings ago, you said there's a stack of 100 complaints that have come in since Deycia left, at least. How is anybody gonna get to that if they're working part-time? We need a full-time code enforcement officer, in my mind, end of subject, I'm sorry.
You say yes. Okay, Rocky, go ahead.
Well, I have a little something to say also. I agree with Jim that we're way behind, but I think at some point in time, we will catch up, and I don't think it'll be a full-time job. I agree, it needs to be caught up. And I guess the hard part is taking that away from someone once we've decided that it is. I'd like to see our money spent more in law enforcement, because it's in that line, but.
So you're saying yes on a temporary basis? Is that what I'm hearing? Kind of yes until we get everything kind of.
It's kind of like the rest of, I don't think we will always need a full-time code enforcement, but it may take full-time to get it caught up.
Okay, all right, that's kind of what I wanted to know. So, we have, this is, get chaos, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who next? Me. Oh, because you didn't answer, okay, Liz. And what's your opinion, Liz?
Oh my gosh. Well, a lot of it's contingent on the budget, and that's why I'm having a hard time with this. And that's why I wanted a discussion, because if we knew what we're dealing with, it'd be easier to answer.
Okay, so we are going to discuss it. I was just hoping to postpone that discussion to the next meeting.
And why are you
Because-
asking us for an answer before we have a discussion? I don't understand.
Just trying to get an idea where we stand, so it gives us a better, understanding of how to move forward according to the council's wishes. So Jim?
I think the easiest way to think of this is, this is a want. Do you want a code enforcement, 100% code enforcement officer or not? Then we can get to the budgeting and find out, oh, we don't have the money.
Yeah.
We'd like a full-time code enforcement officer, but we don't have the money.
Yeah.
I can accept that. I don't like it, but I can accept that. So the same thing is to you. Would you like
Yeah, that's
a
better.
full-time code enforcement officer? And then if we can afford it, we'll get that. And if we can't afford it,
We'll do the
we
best we
can't
can.
afford it. Yeah,
Yeah.
right now, we
I'd
don't
like
have
a
that.
3/4 time code enforcement officer and 1/4 emergency management. How's that?
Okay, I'm putting you down for that list.
More realistic.
Yes, that's probably what will happen.
Okay, that takes care of that one. And, okay, now this next one is pretty important, which is, we're gonna vote on whether to release the $225,000 for, what?
Well, I did have the pavement part of it too.
Yeah, for what?
Was that not included in the packets for the budget stuff? For the chip sealing?
Oh, no, that's not, I was talking about
Well,
the,
that's in,
We're on Mill Street.
Yeah, so page
so we're
50
skipping Mill Street.
Oh,
We're,
No, page 58 of your packet has to do with the budget,
oh, I'm sorry, there's another bit.
57 and 58.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
on page 51 is, the third paragraph of my memo,
okay,
and I talk about, there's an opportunity for collaborating with the county to get some of our local streets chip sealed. This is a great way to get a couple more years out of the streets that are in low to medium category for condition at a reduced cost. Chip sealing can be very effective for many years. So the county is looking for a tentative answer that we will take them up on the offer. So page 58 is Gary still on? Or did he have to jump off? So Gary's been working with the county, so on page 57 is the mapping. They just want a tentative, I just need a tentative, nothing isn't, is solid until the budget is actually adopted. But this, Gary, do you wanna say anything? I think chip sealing, how many years can you get out of a road, like 15?
Yeah, we can get up to 15 to 20 years out of it as long as you stay up on the O&M, as long as you keep up on the fog coating and, sealing any of the cracks or anything, you can get a long life out of chip sealing. As long as you do the amount of, I believe it's between 1 and 3 layers depending on the condition of the road. And so we have identified several roads that we'd like to try to do.
These are some of the roads that, outside of Sheridan Road, we don't know about that, but these are some of the roads that we do are the most traveled and we get the most complaints on. And this is a very good deal for the council and speaking of partners, and cuts down on quite a bit of the cost. So I'm hoping to just get a general yes from you, Gary and I, so we can tell the county so that they can solidify their plans and put it into their budget too. That's why I'm bringing this to you early, is this has other people depending on us.
okay, so.
We save quite a bit on the mow fees. That was normally
Mobilization.
the mow bin, yeah, that's just the county pays or we would pay. This kind of splits it between us.
Okay. So I'm thinking that, the counselors have had a chance to read this because it was in their packet and I have read through this, and so I can see that it will, so let's just see whether there's a consensus to go ahead and go with this. So let's just go, okay, all in favor?
Okay, perfect. That's what Gary and I needed.
You have a consensus, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think Gary can go offline now. I think that was the last thing for sure.
Okay. Good night.
And then lastly, I have your little budget idea sheets. Some of you are familiar with me, what I hand out. So these are, I would say, I'd like these at the next work session for April.
can we make copies?
Oh, yeah. You can.
Oh, she needs 10.
And I will be including all the items as much as I can that are already listed in the strategic plan, so you can ignore those, these are for other things. Okay, here's the rest. Okay, there you go.
Okay. All right, so I believe now we're ready to go down to item D.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
I
And this,
make a motion.
well, should we, let me go ahead.
Okay,
Okay, so everybody knows what this is. This is the $225,000 appropriation grant that can only be used for constructing shelters in Sheridan. The council has unanimously said that it will not build shelters in Sheridan, so this vote is to release those funds. Does everybody understand that?
Release means give them back.
So we've never actually taken possession of this cash, but it is being held for us. So what we would be voting to do is to let them use that money for other purposes, that we no longer have any claim on it. Okay, go ahead, Dave.
can I make a motion now?
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we, release the $225,000 appropriation grant back to the state so that they could give it to somebody else that wants to do this, wants to build shelters.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I just have a clarification, Mary Ann. The motion was worded as though we get to tell the state what they can or can't do with the money.
Yeah.
And we don't have any.
Right.
I was
Just wanted to
Do you want to
clarify.
rewrite that?
I do, I'll make the motion revised, just to return the money to the state for them to put it back in their fund to do what they see fit.
Okay,
Still second.
still second. Any further discussion on this? Go ahead, Vinnie.
I spent quite a bit of time trying to find out if we could use this money for anything else besides shelters. And the bottom line I got from Mr. Walt Campbell with the state was no, it has to be for shelters. A shower trailer is not a shelter. Period. So that's where we stand on that. We can't use it. The council said no. So I think it should be.
Okay, any other comments on this? Lucy?
So Heidi, if the 127 Mill Street property was used and it had showers and bathrooms in there with a laundromat and a housing, closed for homeless people, whether at the resource center, would that somehow, separate from the mobile showers, would that, or put the mobile showers in there because you can make them, like in an RV park? Is it possible to take some of those funds, because it is kind of being used for the word homeless, but it's to facilitate them, but not the whole facilitation, just a part of it? Have you asked to see if there could be a margin around a section of it? I'm not saying the whole 225, I'm just saying a certain amount to facilitate that for the homeless, whether at the resource center.
It's pretty clear that it's strictly for shelters, and that would not be a shelter.
I have not had any conversations with the state, but Denny has researched it. So I have not had any conversations with Brett Elmer or anybody at the state about the 225, but.
Well, I know sometimes there's loopholes if you don't say it just right, and there are certain loopholes that you can get away with that's legal by law, but you just, kind of like the way he phrased his motion, you just gotta phrase it a different way, and there could, I just wanna know if that has been investigated in that venue.
Okay, Liz?
Lucy, Denny investigated it, read the letter. Did you read his email?
I read part of it, it
He
says,
got a note from the state, and absolutely not, it has to be for a shelter, we need to be released.
well, if you can't use it, then yes, but it just seems like that portion of it would fall under that possibly, but I haven't checked into it to use those specific terms, and I know Denny just kind of, has a blunt way of doing it, and I'm more of a picker. I pick through it better, I pick through the trash better.
But
And-
read the letter from the state.
Well, I did, but it says homeless shelter, but I don't know, did you say that, because you're not really for 127, so, and I am, so that's a whole different.
That's a whole different story.
That's right, it is, but so what if they did use 127, and that might change the story to allocate some funds to go towards the homeless, because now you are promoting it in a way that would benefit them, even though it's
Well,
not a quote shelter.
It has
And I
to
know
be a
you're gonna
shelter.
cut me off, so nothing new there.
No, but crying
You
out
want that or
loud.
not?
No, I got
Okay.
it in the phone.
All right, but it's pretty clear.
Looks like Carol has a question, Mayor.
Mayor,
Excuse me? Oh, yes, Gail? There you are, yes.
Hi, sorry, well, before I say anything else, I am, totally for releasing the money back to the state if it can only be used to build homeless shelters, because that's not what we're gonna be doing. And I, saw Danny's email, and his email was very clear, from that person from the state. However, I did read the grant agreement, and there's two parts in there. The first part is under section 8 miscellaneous, and I underlined this. Sorry for a second. There's an abbreviation. I want to make sure I don't read the abbreviation. So recipient may not assign or transfer any of its rights or obligations or any interest in this agreement without the prior written consent of DAS, which stands for Department of Administrative Services. DAS may grant, withhold, or impose conditions on such consent in its sole discretion. So I read that as if it can be altered. If you read it, maybe I'm wrong. I could maybe ask Tyler for his interpretation of that. And then also, there's under amendments waivers, it says this agreement may not be amended without the prior written consent of DAS. And when required, the Department of Justice, and recipient. So it sounds like maybe the Department of Administrative Services, if we write to them, they could amend this. I don't know. I was gonna bring it up and ask Tyler what he interpreted that as if, this could be something if we write and request this be used for something else, if they would grant it. But I was gonna bring that up.
The complication on these types of agreements are it's the Department of Administrative Services administering what they believe the legislature meant when they worded that appropriation. And you guys have seen the things that I write. I would never ever have the one sentence in the entire grant agreement say for homeless shelter. If we were having to just have an argument based on no definitions, which is what we have, I think Lucy brings up a very valid point that might fall under what the Department of Administrative Services considers homeless. So it may not even be a matter of requiring an amendment. I have not spoken to anybody at the Department of Administrative Services. I don't believe that they have any information about possibly renovating the current structure in the city to be used as a resource center. Walt Campbell works for the legislature, so his purview is that one sentence. And yes, that one sentence says for homeless shelter. I don't think anybody in this room has any information from the Department of Administrative Services about what might or might not fall into that. But the agreement allows for us to work with them to provide you a long-winded answer, Gail.
Thank you, Tyler.
I make a motion, we table Denny's motion that I seconded until we know, after we talk to Beg, the Department of Administrative Services, to find out. Initially, we had thought, hey, we got money, and now we read a specific line, which it says shelters, end of subject. But apparently there's some wiggle room there. Let's be sure and ask before we give it up and then find out, well, damn, we could have kept maybe 100,000 of that because they might have let us. So let's make that effort. Let's find out. So
Okay, does that fall to Heidi?
I am happy to take that project on. I've worked with DAS for big, giant amounts of money.
Okay.
So I am happy to.
So I made a motion to table that until further information comes to me.
I second.
Okay, any further discussion on that one? Okay, all in favor? That looks unanimous, okay.
Cal's got his hand up.
Okay. Gail?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, so do we need to, cause I know we just made a motion, but do we need to like motion or, request Heidi research this or Tyler? I'm not sure if we need to make like a separate motion or like a separate,
I think Tyler's saying no,
consensus.
and Heidi's saying she is familiar with this work and will take care of it, so, thank you.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if like, they needed direction from the council, so I was gonna ask. Okay.
And you're good.
Thank you, Kale, for that clarification.
Heidi has what she needs to do her work on this, that she exclusively will be following up on.
Okay. Exclusively, yeah. Okay. And so we've already reviewed the strategic plan booklet, and we are moving the YCAP home shower discussion to the March 12th meeting at 4 p.m. at City Hall. Okay, and let's see, we wanted to know more about the process for burn to learn for the other house bill. I know there's did you already talk to the people about the asbestos survey on that house?
So in the good spirit of assigning tasks to other people on
yes.
staff, I have done so. And so the public works employee was tasked with investigating the possibilities of doing a burn to learn and not learn to burn.
I know, that's right. I like it there.
I've decided the best way to remember is it's do it in alphabet order. So it's burn, B, burn to learn, 245 something. So we found out that the fire district needs to have it cleaned out. The reason why with this property is it's so full, and they have to ensure the safety of the fighters, and so there can't be, stuff that's mingled into the piles that are in there. So this place does have to be cleaned out, and I have an updated estimate for junk removal. And so I had him look over at the Mill Street, yeah, 127 million, I think I know the address. But there is a mistake on here, he wrote 132 mil, but it is still 127 mil. So I'll go ahead and pass out this estimate for you. This is just to remove the debris, and there is a typo in my memo. At the time the gentleman and I spoke, I thought we were on the same page about, what's the word, what is it called, termination of pests? Exterminator. And so he said, he and I had a follow-up conversation, and actually he is not an exterminator, but he will remove any dead things that are in there. So that was a misunderstanding. So this does not include extermination.
Okay.
Of critters.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
So, what about the live things that are in there?
Yes, so that's part of my ask here. So question to the council, do you want me to proceed with cleanup, question mark, rodents, which is, I'm struggling with this word, exterminator, or asbestos testing. And so I have it here for you for 127 mil for those 3 questions, and I have it here for 245 for Morgan for those 3 questions. So and then you have the price quotes here, that the public works person went over and explored about that, and that's a standard price that I've seen before for asbestos.
Okay, just so.
The asbestos testing has to be done regardless if you burn it. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what I was gonna get to, no matter what we do with the, no matter what.
Yeah.
So we've gotta clean it out, correct?
Yes.
Fire department doesn't want a bunch of stuff in there, they just say, gotta be cleaning it out. I don't think we have a choice.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna burn it, we need to have the asbestos checked, is that also correct?
Yes,
correct.
Okay, so 2 choices have already been made for us, if we're gonna do anything with that building, these have to be done. The rodents, I have no idea, if you burn the building down, they're gonna move the rats out.
Yeah,
Doesn't necessarily improve the neighborhood, does it?
No.
Yeah.
So I think,
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, Nick.
So that's my experience in the past with burning buildings down that are infested. You don't kill all the rats when they catch on fire, they spread out through the neighborhood. We had that problem in Alaska, and we never had a rat one, and Buffett's about 5-6 blocks. They tore down some old buildings, and our neighborhood got infested. They bore through the ground and get under your foundation. It's a mess. So I think we should get them exterminated before.
Yeah.
Kale has his hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Ken.
I was just gonna request, before, if we do go forward, with this as far as, you know, extermination or raffling or whatever, if we, I don't know, if somebody can do like a walkthrough and like, if, you know, get rid of any cats they see, because I know I've seen some in there before we put any rat poison on in the house. We're not poisoning any, you know, neighborhood cats. Never really been much of a cat person, but my daughter is, like, kind of like cats. But I just didn't want, you know, because I've seen them in there, I don't want them to for sure get burned, but I definitely don't want any to get poisoned either, so I'm just gonna request that.
Okay, go ahead, Heidi.
When you reported the cat inside, we sent Public Works in at that time and they did board it up, but cats are tricky animals, and so we will definitely double check that there's no, I'll have the exterminator make sure that there's no, creatures other than rodents, I suppose.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
In that same vein, I'm sure exterminators have been asked that kind of question before. Also, if they poison the rats, I know there is one type of poison that basically causes the rats to just kind of keep growing until they explode, which is disgusting, I'm sorry. But there is that type of poison. In the meantime, I bet if some cat decides that fat rat looks really good, so we might want to ask any exterminator, what do you use to not, you know, poison anybody else, including cats, dogs, rabbits?
And then Lucy?
So when you do the, you were talking about the asbestos test, when you're burning, do you have to do that if you are doing a, not necessarily remodeling the outside, but the inside, like for 127? Do they still have to test for that?
It's a
If
good
it's not being
idea.
disturbed?
If it's not being disturbed,
It's not being disturbed.
no, but you still, it's still a good idea. I mean, how much is it? It's like $820 is a rough estimate. So even, and I guess she doesn't have a mobilization fee, so you could, this is based on a hindsight fee, 25 samples. Yeah. So, yeah, you could do the one at a time.
Okay, and Roxy?
Do we know what the exterminator will charge?
I didn't, because at the time that I wrote this, I thought the guy was a junk removal and an exterminator, but then through clarification,
Do we have to go around for an RFP for that?
Mary Ann read the actual email that he sent.
Do we have to have an RFP for that?
No, it's probably too, falls under the pricing threshold.
Better fall under the pricing threshold.
Yeah. But if, I will make sure that we pick a good one that comes back multiple times.
I don't know if they, for household kind of extermination for cats, but I know on the farms, when they go poison the mice, the type of poison they use, because the mice come out of the ground and die, and then the birds come down and eat them. That poison won't hurt the birds. Once it's gone through the rat, that's excellent.
So my mom uses an exterminator because, for different reasons when we remodeled that house, and these are some of the same questions that she asked, and so I'll make sure that these are the questions that I asked. But it sounds like wildlife or pets.
So it sounds like we should, okay, just a second, go ahead, Lucy.
And so on this bid, are we taking 127 off because we're tabling that whole conversation for tonight?
Well, I can't, we can, it sounds like regardless, we need to get it cleaned out.
Yeah.
But the people that I have looking at the house are looking at taking the garbage and getting rid of the rats, so.
Okay.
All right.
And we can always just wait a week because that meeting's next Tuesday, and so we can just wait a week until they make a decision.
Okay.
Is that a good idea?
That works good. I thought I said that, but did you? But-
We could have target practice be part of.
Okay.
It is against sewer.
Sorry. Fire. Yes, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Then, so it sounds like for, I guess we should wait and see, yeah, so we can go ahead. And with the asbestos, we're picking up and the road extermination in 135. And then we'll see what happens on 127. Okay.
Sorry, I was just gonna add real quick, I don't know if anyone's done any asbestos testing recently, but, I have, with my, new house, and, $800 for 25 samples, is pretty good. So that's, gonna share that. I'm getting a couple Dacia samples is actually a pretty good, pretty good price, so.
This is a company that's outside, that's pretty local, it's near Amity and Sheridan in between, so.
Maybe she gets the name of the company. Okay, all right, and so then, Yvonne, do we have anyone else to speak during the second comment period?
I received no more.
Okay.
But.
Looks like we got a couple coming in.
Okay. Okay, and so. Oh, yeah, see. Deycia?
Are you there, Deycia? Let me get.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Hi. Yeah, so Deycia, resident of Sheridan. I did just want to put my input on, where you guys were going over the goals and the emphasis. I do think that there are a lot larger things in town. Code enforcement is very important. You all know how I feel about that. But there are other things within the community that I feel like really should be focused on, and the residents within this community should be heard on. On a more personal note, maybe I shouldn't, but I'm going to. I did feel it was a little bit disrespectful to say that in decades there was no movement going forward with code enforcement. I know firsthand that the city staff has worked really, really hard to find ways to include the community into making it look better and bring in that economic development, bring in new business, incentivize good residents and building good relationships within the city. And that's all I'm gonna say. There is a lot more, in my personal opinion, that should be focused on in town other than code enforcement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Yes, Joe.
Needs another part.
So a lot of people on my life here saying that the bulletin would be a great asset to let the people know what's going on, like anything that's in the council. That would be the best thing to use. We all really need the bulletin.
Yeah. Great, I agree, that's a great idea. Okay, anyone else? Those pages are still up, but I don't know if that's something else or it's just not.
No, I thought it went down, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Mike might have another comment.
She's just saying hi now.
Okay. Okay, so shall we move on to, mayor council concerns, and I don't think we need to talk to that one, did we? So, go ahead, Dave.
Just have one little piece of information. The Senate has started to work on a bill, 1537. There's a good article in the Oregon Capitol Chronicle by Julia Shumway, excuse me. And it has to do with the governor's trying to come up with 369 million for housing for the state. And they're also looking at making a one-time sweetheart deal for urban growth boundaries for cities. And a town our size can get up to 50 acres. So I certainly don't want to let that slip through.
Yep, I read the same article.
Cool. All right, that's great. Okay, anybody else have a comment? Yes, Liz?
Just because some people are here that brought this up, I would like to reiterate that Heidi is starting not a website,
I have a city manager Facebook page.
City manager Facebook page, which will be a place to ask questions and get information, so residents can interact with Heidi and find information out.
Okay. Anything else? Yes, Vinci?
So when, Gary was talking about the chip and the
Chip in the seal.
the chip in the seal, and I looked on the map, but I didn't know if I could say anything, is that I drove down Grant Street the other day, and I was thinking of the engineers when you said you better find another place to have the kids on the school bus. I don't know how many of you folks have driven down Grant Street, but she is a living disaster. But that street does run parallel to Sheridan Road, so you are gonna be using it for a diversionary. And that street was not on the map. And that's what I would have said if I could have spoke. And so that was one of my beefs I have. And the other beef that I kind of have is when I want to voice my opinion during comment time, I don't like being shut down. I know you might not want to hear it, but I have something that I want to say to the people who are hearing this over the screen. that I care enough to be able to discuss that for them, because I'm representing them. And I feel like many times you cut me off when I'm in the middle of something, because maybe you just don't want to listen to it. But that's the way I feel. And
Right.
people have called me and said, why did she do that to you? And I said, you should call her up and ask her.
Okay, well, they should do that. But it's just sometimes it's a matter of just keeping things moving. And sometimes, I think that that's one of my biggest issues is to keep discussions, time short so that we can keep moving and stay on track. And so, that's something that I feel like I need to learn better how to deal with that. And so all I'm trying to do is keep things moving and.
But I listened to you, cut me off, and then you kind of cut Liz off. You kind of let Roxy talk, and you let Jim talk, and Denny. But it's like you kind of pick and choose, and I don't care for that kind of behavior, whether you didn't mean to or not. You need to be aware that that's going on. And like I said, there's people out there that call me and they want to know, and I'm doing it even if you don't want to know, and I'm trying to explain things to them because I know that it's getting recorded. So that's what I wanted to comment on also.
That was not intentional. I apologize, and I will look into that. I'll try to be aware of it. Thank you. Anybody else?
No, and I have one thing too. I have a problem with when you poll us on something before we've actually had time to explore it or get some information.
Okay.
It's putting the what is it called, the cart before the horse.
Okay.
I think that if we're gonna make a decision on something, we really have to
All I
have
wanted
some
was like a
information.
general idea, like I wasn't gonna hold anybody's toe to the fire to stand behind that. I was just kind of trying to formulate how the council feels about a thing so that we can move forward. We kind of have an idea of where we're starting from. So that's it. I wasn't, nobody was gonna sign a blood on that one, so, okay. Anybody else? Motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay.
Here's my letter and there's.
Are you off?
Yeah, I'm off now.
Recording stop.